Welcome, everyone, to vpod.ai. I'm your host, Mike, and joining me today is our resident expert, Susan.
Hey there, so glad to be here.
You can sponsor this podcast for just $25. Your message will be featured across major platforms like Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and more. If you're interested, visit vpod.ai to get started today.
It really is a great opportunity.
All right, so let's just get right into it. Usually when we talk about stress, we think of it as this highly visible thing, right? Like a broken bone on an X-ray.
Yeah,
You've got a looming deadline at work, or you're sitting in a terrible traffic jam, or maybe you have this high-stakes presentation coming up, and you can just point directly at it and say, yep, that is the cause of my anxiety.
Right, it feels super straightforward. It's an external force that's just pressing down on you.
Right.
And because the trigger is external, the solution always feels like it needs to be about changing your circumstances or, just pushing through with sheer willpower or trying to force some major mindset shift.
But, and this is what we're getting into today, if you look at the sheer biological mechanics of the human body, that cause and effect relationship gets entirely flipped on its head.
Totally fun.
Yeah. So today, our mission is to explore how incredibly basic everyday habits, and I'm talking specifically about drinking water and taking vitamins, are actually secretly orchestrating your body's entire stress response.
And your sleep cycles, too, all behind the scenes.
Exactly. We are going to completely reframe how you approach your own biological maintenance. By the time we finish this session, you're going to look at a simple glass of water and even the morning sunlight in a completely different, scientifically optimized way.
It really changes your whole perspective.
So let's unpack this first major invisible stressor. Like we said, we typically think of stress as an external pressure. But what if your body is actively manufacturing a massive stress response from the inside, simply because of your water bottle?
Yeah, the mechanics of this are pretty mind-blowing. It's really illuminated by a fascinating piece of research that used something called the Trier Social Stress Test.
The Trier Social Stress Test.
Yeah, it's this notoriously effective laboratory procedure that is specifically designed to simulate high-pressure situations.
Okay, so what did they actually do?
Well, researchers brought in 32 healthy adults, and they had a really wide age range, actually, from 18 all the way up to 84 years old.
Oh, wow, that's a big spread.
Right. And they divided these individuals into two distinct groups. And the split was based entirely on their normal everyday fluid intake.
And the gap between these two groups' daily habits was, pretty significant.
Huge.
Yeah, one group habitually drank about 1.3 liters of water per day, which is roughly 6 cups.
Which really isn't a lot.
No. But the other group, they were drinking roughly 4.4 liters per day, or about 18 cups.
Yeah. So after a week of them just maintaining these regular hydration habits, the researchers brought them in and put them through this Trier protocol.
Which sounds absolutely awful, by the way.
Oh, it's brutal. Just to give you an idea of what it entails, it involves standing in front of an unsmiling panel of judges.
Ugh, the worst.
Literally just staring at you, and you have to perform this unexpected public speaking task, and then right after that, incredibly frustrating mental arithmetic challenges.
Right, like counting backwards from a prime number by intervals of 17.
Exactly. It's specifically engineered to provoke a measurable, undeniable stress response in the human body.
I mean, doing rapid-fire math in front of people with clipboards who are just staring blankly at you, that is practically the universal definition of a nightmare.
It really is. It completely forces the body to react. So while the participants were doing all of this, the researchers tracked a bunch of metrics. They looked at heart rate, reported anxiety levels, and saliva cortisol.
Cortisol being the body's primary stress hormone.
Exactly. Cortisol is the biomarker. It indicates exactly how intensely your internal alarm system is ringing. And they also tracked hydration status using urine samples just to confirm biologically who was optimally hydrated and who was running a deficit.
Right. And here's where it gets crazy. When they asked the participants how they felt during the math and the public speaking, both groups reported feeling equally anxious.
Yeah. The subjective psychological experience of the stress was identical for both groups.
But physiologically, their internal reactions were just completely different.
Vastly different. The group that was habitually underhydrated, so those drinking under 1.5 liters a day, they experienced significantly greater spikes in their cortisol levels.
Wow.
Yeah, their biological stress response was just totally exaggerated compared to the well-hydrated group.
So basically, the baseline of their biological system was already strained before they even walked into the testing room.
Precisely. They were already on edge chemically.
Okay, so how does that actually work on a cellular level? Why does a lack of water translate to a panic chemical?
It all comes down to a specific hormone called vasopressin.
Vasopressin. Okay.
Yeah. When your blood volume drops because of a lack of water, your body releases vasopressin to tell your kidneys to stop producing urine. It's basically saying, hold on to whatever water we have left.
Which makes sense. It's a fundamental survival mechanism.
Right, but vasopressin is a multitasker. It doesn't just stop at the kidneys, it actually interacts directly with the HPA axis.
Okay, let's pause and break down the HPA axis for anyone listening who isn't, an endocrinologist.
Good call. So the HPA axis stands for the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Think of it as your body's cascading fire alarm system.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, so the hypothalamus in your brain is the smoke detector. When it senses a threat, it sends a signal to the pituitary gland, which acts like the electrical wiring.
Right.
And then the pituitary sends a chemical signal down to the adrenal glands, which are sitting right on top of your kidneys.
And the adrenal glands are the sprinklers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The adrenal glands are the sprinklers, and they drop the cortisol payload right into your bloodstream.
Okay, so where does the vasopressin fit into that whole alarm system?
So vasopressin acts as an amplifier for the hypothalamus. When your water intake is low, the vasopressin essentially makes that smoke detector hypersensitive.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, your brain interprets the lack of water as this low-grade, persistent survival threat.
So because the alarm system is already primed and humming in the background,
Yeah.
a completely unrelated trigger like an annoying work email or, doing math in front of researchers, it causes a massive overreaction.
Yep. The sprinklers just go off at full blast.
Okay, but here's my question. If the underhydrated people didn't actually feel thirstier during the study, which the data show they didn't, how are you supposed to know your body is secretly in this state of high-stress panic?
Well, that's the tricky part. Thirst is an incredibly delayed biological signal.
Wait, really?
Yeah. By the time your conscious brain actually registers the sensation of being thirsty, physiological dehydration has already set in.
I see.
The vasopressin is already circulating, and that HPA axis is already firing up your cortisol. You're operating from a deficit before you even take your first sip of water.
And chronically high cortisol is dangerous. I mean, we aren't just talking about feeling jittery before a meeting.
Not at all. Long-term, elevated cortisol actively degrades your overall health. It is linked to severe metabolic conditions like insulin resistance, cardiovascular issues, and even clinical depression.
Because your biology just cannot stay in a state of hypervigilant emergency mode forever. Eventually, tissues and systems are going to start breaking down.
Exactly. You wear out the machine.
So, since relying on the sensation of thirst is clearly a trap that leaves our stress hormones silently elevated, we obviously need a proactive system to keep that background biological stress from draining our resilience.
We do. And the baseline protocol here is to aim for about 2 to 3 liters of fluids daily.
Which is roughly 8 to 12 cups.
Right. And obviously you want to adjust that based on your physical size and how active you are. But because thirst is so unreliable, urine color actually becomes your true real-time metric.
Right. You're aiming for pale yellow.
Pale yellow. If it's darker than that, you definitely need to drink more.
Okay, but you also have to factor in the modern habits working against that pale yellow metric, right?
Yeah.
Like caffeine and alcohol.
Oh, absolutely. Caffeine and alcohol both have mild diuretic effects.
Meaning they chemically prompt your kidneys to expel water?
Yes. They override the body's natural retention system. So if your daily routine heavily involves like coffee all morning or a glass of wine at night, you have to actively balance that out with extra water intake just to maintain your baseline hydration.
Okay, wait. I want to push back on this 3-liter volume rule for a second.
Okay, wait on me.
If I am just chugging 3 liters of plain water all day long, aren't I basically just flushing out my kidneys and diluting my system? Like, I've heard that overhydration can actually strip the body of what it needs and be just as dangerous.
That is a very legitimate concern. And it brings us to the missing half of the hydration equation, which is electrolytes.
Electrolytes.
Yes. Minerals like sodium, magnesium, and potassium. If you drink massive amounts of plain, completely demineralized water, it will largely just pass right through you.
So it's basically like pouring water into a bucket full of holes.
Precisely. Electrolytes carry a tiny electrical charge. They are the cellular mechanisms that actually pull the water into your tissues and hold it there.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah. Without sufficient sodium and potassium in your system, the water just stays in your extracellular fluid and gets filtered straight out by the kidneys.
So you will be taking endless trips to the bathroom, but your cells, and crucially your brain, remain fundamentally dehydrated.
Exactly. The vasopressin keeps flowing, and the cortisol keeps triggering.
Okay, so let's apply this to a real-world scenario for the listener. Say you have a massive presentation at 2 p.m. You are already going to be nervous. Your psychological stress is going to spike.
Right.
What you don't want is your biology compounding that panic because you only had black coffee all morning.
Exactly.
So by proactively hydrating with water and electrolytes before that big meeting, you can actually physically blunt your cortisol spike.
You're giving your body the chemical safety signal it needs to stay calm.
Right. You're removing the background biological panic so you can actually just deal with this psychological task right in front of you.
But, and this is but quieting the vasopressin alarm is really only half the battle for physiological recovery.
Right, because you can stop the unnecessary panic spikes, but you still have to rebuild the underlying resilience.
Exactly. Lowering cortisol allows the body to rest, but the body still requires raw materials to execute that rest effectively.
Which brings us to another invisible deficiency that completely disrupts our physiological baseline, a vital nutrient that acts a lot more like a hormone, really.
Yes.
And it's one that we falsely assume we get enough of just by walking outside. I'm talking about vitamin D.
And the clinical statistics on this are just staggering. An alarming 93% of Americans fail to get even 400 international units or IU of vitamin D from their daily diet.
Wow, 93%.
Yeah. And just to contextualize that number, 400 IU is incredibly low. When you look at standard over-the-counter supplements, they typically start at a 1,000 to 5,000 IU just to reach a maintenance dose.
So those dietary numbers really expose the flaw in that whole I eat a balanced diet, so I'm fine mentality.
Totally.
Because, like, a 3-ounce serving of farm salmon gets you about 447 IU. A cup of fortified milk gives you 100 IU. 8 ounces of vanilla yogurt provides just 86 IU.
It's basically nothing.
Right. You would have to consume a frankly nauseating amount of fortified dairy every single day just to keep your biology running at the absolute bare minimum.
It is a statistical impossibility to eat your way to optimal vitamin D levels. The renowned vitamin D researcher, Dr. Michael Holick, points out that there are essentially no natural dietary options that you can consume in realistic quantities to meet your daily requirement.
Because vitamin D is not something plants or animals naturally store in massive quantities in the muscle tissue we typically eat.
Right. It has fundamentally designed to be synthesized by sun exposure on the skin.
But Dr. Holick has a pretty stark reality check for the whole sun exposure argument too, doesn't
Yo, he definitely does. He noted that unless you are literally a lifeguard,
Yeah.
working outside with large areas of exposed skin during peak sunlight hours every single day, it is completely unrealistic to think you can get enough vitamin D exposure from the sun alone, given our modern schedules.
And the seasonal blood test data proves that point unequivocally.
Oh, yeah. When researchers looked at the average serum levels, which is the clinical biomarker of vitamin D in your blood, measured in nanograms per milliliter, or NGML adults in the U.S. were only hovering around 18 to 22 NGML at the end of winter.
Which, I mean, winter makes sense. We are bundled up in coats, the days are short, and the angle of the sun is just too low to trigger synthesis in the skin.
Sure, but the really critical data point is what happens at the very end of summer.
Right.
After months of maximum sunshine, longer days, warmer weather, the average blood level only hit 29 NGML.
And the absolute minimum baseline sufficiency cutoff recognized by most clinical bodies is 30 NGLiter.
Yes. So both the summer and winter averages completely fail to meet the absolute biological baseline.
It is incredibly counterintuitive that even after 3 months of summer sun, we are still failing a basic biological test.
Sounds crazy at first.
But stepping back and looking at how we actually live, it tracks perfectly. Our modern indoor lifestyles, the offices, the cars, the fact that we slather on sunscreen the minute we step onto the beach, it has completely divorced us from our natural environment.
Yeah, we are not biologically adapted to live under fluorescent lights 90% of the time.
No. So supplementation is an absolute, non-negotiable necessity to replace what the architecture of modern life has stripped away from us.
The data really leaves no room for debate on whether supplementation is necessary. The real operational question is how to do it correctly so your body actually absorbs it.
Right, because if taking a supplement is mandatory, timing and food pairings become the deciding factors between actually elevating your blood levels and just flushing your hard-earned money right down the drain.
Exactly.
So if I wake up at 6 a.m. and take a standard vitamin D capsule with my black coffee on an empty stomach, is my body just, like, rejecting it?
Essentially, yes.
Ouch.
Yeah. Vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin. Unlike vitamin C or B vitamins, which just dissolve in water and are easily absorbed right into the bloodstream, Fat-soluble vitamins require the presence of dietary fat to pass through the intestinal wall.
Okay, how does that mechanical process actually work in the gut?
Well, when you consume fats like avocado, olive oil, or nuts, your gallbladder releases bile acids into the digestive tract,
Okay.
and these bile acids act like a biological detergent. They emulsify the fats and the vitamin D together into these microscopic droplets called micelles.
My cells, got it.
And then these droplets can easily slip through the intestinal lining and enter your circulation. But if you take a dry powder vitamin D capsule on an empty stomach, there is no fat to trigger that bile release.
And without the bile to emulsify it, the vitamin D just cannot effectively cross the intestinal barrier.
It just passes right on through.
It is like sending an incredibly important, expensive package to a loved one, but completely forgetting to put a postage stamp on the box.
That's a great way to think about it.
The package is full of vital material, but without the stamp, which is the fat. In this case, the Postal Service just cannot deliver it to the destination. It gets returned to sender or, this biological case, expelled right through the digestive tract.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you happen to utilize a premium supplement that already has built-in healthy fats, like, say, olive or avocado oil formulated directly inside the soft gel, you absolutely must take it with food that contains fat.
Now, does the specific timing of that meal matter? Like,
No.
will my biology process it differently if I take it with morning eggs versus an evening salmon dinner?
The specific time of day is actually completely irrelevant to the absorption mechanism.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Morning, noon, or night, your body will process and store the vitamin D exactly the same way, provided those bile acids are activated by fat. What truly dictates success is sheer consistency over weeks and months.
But this raises a practical dilemma for building the habit. If your morning routine is just rolling out of bed, drinking a cup of black coffee with zero fat, and rushing out the door, how do you anchor this to a daily routine so you don't forget it?
Habit stacking is definitely the most effective approach here. If your morning lacks fat, just anchor the supplement to your lunch.
Ah, okay.
Keep the bottle physically visible on your desk at work so it acts as a visual trigger when you sit down to eat a meal with, like, olive oil dressing or avocado. Or just place the bottle next to your toothbrush and take it immediately following dinner.
Right.
And the good news is the biological half-life of vitamin D is incredibly forgiving. If you totally forget to take it one day, clinical experts note that you can safely take double the dose the next day to catch up without any negative side effects.
Which definitely takes the pressure off the daily perfection. It
Yeah.
makes the habit much more sustainable. But why are we focusing so intensely on maximizing this specific absorption? We casually associate vitamin D with generic bone health. But how does this tie back into the emotional resilience, the stress management, and the baseline recovery we were mapping out earlier with the vasopressin and cortisol?
This is where it all connects. Vitamin D is fundamentally woven into your brain's architecture of recovery, specifically through the intricate mechanics of sleep.
Sleep. Okay.
Yeah. Vitamin D is a direct required catalyst in the biological production of melatonin.
Melatonin being the hormone that regulates the circadian rhythm.
Exactly.
It is the chemical signal that tells the brain it is time to lower the core body temperature, shut down conscious processing, and begin cellular repair.
Right. So to understand how vitamin D controls this, we have to look at an enzyme called tryptophan hydroxylase.
Tryptophan hydroxylase.
Yes. When you consume protein, you take in an amino acid called tryptophan. Tryptophan hydroxylase is the gateway enzyme that converts that raw tryptophan into serotonin.
And then the serotonin is subsequently converted into melatonin. So it's basically an assembly line. Tryptophan goes in, the enzyme turns it into serotonin, and the serotonin gets converted into melatonin.
Spot on. And vitamin D is the transcription factor that activates the gene responsible for creating that gateway enzyme.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If you are deficient in vitamin D, you physically lack the enzymatic machinery required to manufacture enough serotonin, which means you cannot produce enough melatonin to achieve deep restorative sleep.
Well, that perfectly explains the bidirectional relationship between sleep and vitamin D. It is a biological two-way street.
It really is.
Low vitamin D status physically throttles your melatonin production, leading to poorer sleep quality and much shorter sleep duration.
And the reverse is equally damaging. Inadequate sleep actively increases your risk of developing a vitamin D deficiency.
Wait, really? How does that work?
When you are sleep deprived, your body's overall metabolic efficiency drops, and its ability to utilize and synthesize nutrients, including vitamin D, gets severely compromised.
It is a brutal physiological catch-22.
It is.
If you don't sleep well, your vitamin D utilization drops. And if your vitamin D drops, you lose the melatonin precursors you need to fall asleep the next night.
Exactly, you just spiral downward.
You accumulate more background stress and exhaustion every single day, while your HPA axis keeps pumping out cortisol because you simply aren't recovering.
The clinical data maps that downward spiral perfectly. But the good news is meta-analyses have consistently demonstrated that actively correcting the deficiency with a properly absorbed vitamin D supplement measurably improves overall sleep quality.
And sleep duration, too.
Yes, and sleep latency, which is how fast you fall asleep. You can chemically intervene and literally break the loop.
So, pulling all of this physiological data together, fixing these two incredibly simple inputs, hydration and vitamin D, it simultaneously dismantles this vicious cycle of stress and exhaustion from both ends.
Exactly. They really function as the twin pillars of your biological baseline. Proper fluid intake, balance with the necessary electrical charge from electrolytes, quiets down the vasopressin.
Right? It signals the HPA axis that the body is safe from drought, which physically stops the unnecessary low-grade cortisol spikes. You successfully remove the background stress.
Then, sufficient vitamin D steps in. Utilizing healthy dietary fats to cross the intestinal wall, it activates the enzymes your brain needs to convert amino acids into melatonin.
So one habit turns off the panic alarm, and the other habit turns on the recovery sequence.
That's a perfect summary. You don't always need a complex psychological intervention or, a radical career change or a month-long silent retreat to feel better.
Right.
Sometimes your brain just needs basic mechanical cellular maintenance to process the demands of daily life.
Which leaves you with a completely new paradigm to ponder. If a simple glass of water can physically lower your body's panic hormones, and a single vitamin can rewrite your sleep architecture, what other psychological struggles are you experiencing right now that are actually just your biology crying out for basic maintenance?
It's a huge question.
What if the key to unlocking your absolute mental peak isn't a new productivity app or a sheer test of willpower, but simply listening to the quiet chemistry of your own body?
It fundamentally changes how you view a stressful day. I mean, the solution might just be sitting in a water bottle and a supplement rather than a huge change in mindset.
Absolutely. When you clear away the murky diagnostic landscape of blaming your circumstances and you start looking at the rigid mechanics of your biological baseline, the path forward suddenly becomes crystal clear. Thank you all for joining us on this exploration today. Now, do your brain a massive favor and go drink a glass of water right now.